Joanne, thank you so much for being here today. It is truly a joy to get to sit down with you and talk all things World Hope International.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about how World Hope got started. What was that vision that you had in that spare bedroom of the parsonage in Missouri? Why did you start World Hope?
Well, that's a very interesting question because many people ask me that, and they think I just got up one morning, I had this vision, and the next day I started this. It wasn't quite like that. So World Hope started in 1996, but the vision that happened was in 1985. I know that's back in the dark ages now. But if people remember, there was an enormous famine. In fact, it's said it is the largest in modern history. Again, I don't know today some of the most recent ones, but it's been said that in Ethiopia. Yeah. And the world looked at that, and in a way that was the first time that famine had been piped into all of our living rooms via television from a part of the world. So in a very interesting way, I was connected with some folks and in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they decided that the ABC News in Grand Rapids wanted to do their own documentary of the famine in Ethiopia. So I was invited to go with them. They said they wanted a faith person to go along with them on this. And I think it was just to represent the faith community because the faith community cared, but we didn't quite know what to do or how to do this. So I went with this group to Ethiopia in 1985. And some of you may remember those are the big days when We Are the World and Michael Jordan, all those folks, and Band-Aid trucks. Well, I rode in those Band-Aid trucks.
Amazing.
So I'm part of history here now. But we did, and so I was with them. And it was fascinating how I responded. I had never seen, and if you saw the videos or saw the special on CNN, they named the city or the area called Coram. I was there, packed of people starving to death and dying daily there. And we were there. And so one of the first places we went was to an area where they even had it blocked off the level of starvation. People would be here if you need to have IVs to live, you were here. If you had this, here. It was that. And there were 250,000 people just in that, and then that many people almost outside waiting. And I found myself so overwhelmed, I unconsciously realized I just kept hanging around the cameraman. And then I realized I'm wanting this camera as a distance between me and the suffering. Well, God has a way. And so I'm standing with the cameraman and one of the nurses from the UK, Save the Children, grabbed my arm and said, I'm going to take you out to the field. And I knew what the field was, and I really didn't want to go there because the field is all the people, the thousands of people that are waiting to be evaluated to get in, to triage to get in. Well, I'm not a nurse. I didn't know how to do that. But she took me out anyway. And I'll never forget going out there overwhelmed with all that I had. But the interesting thing, Jen, something I never understood, I walked out there, here are all these people, and they were silent. Not a sound. And I said to the nurse, why are they so silent? She looked at me like, don't you know, they don't want to waste 1 calorie by talking. I mean, that's starvation.
Wow.
And so as we were there, of course, when we walked out, people started coming to us to share what they needed and so forth, and to try to get their story. And so I was standing there with her, and this woman walked up and started telling her story. And her husband had died in a village quite a few miles away, and she'd heard about help. She had 4 children. So she said, I'm on my way here to get some help. I've already buried 2 children on the way. And these 2 children standing with her. And when she finished her story, she collapsed at our feet and died. I mean, that brought me face to face with what things can be fixed. That does not need to happen.
Right.
She didn't have a disease. She didn't have anything. It was just simply food that she needed. And I kept thinking of Jesus and how he fed the 5,000. I mean, Jesus cares about hungry people. And then I found out, that's when I realized I have 4 children. I'm in a place where I have opportunity. I will never have to face what she did, but I'm no better in the eyes of God than she is. We're all made in the image of God. I could never get that out of my heart and my mind, and God planted that in my heart. So, of course, we did many more things throughout that trip. But then also in that, I realized the cup of cold water. Also, I might want to say, as I began to look, who are the volunteers? Who are the people here? Very, very few Christians. Many people from all over. Now, it was a communist country, I know, and so we had issues with that. But it was volunteers, secular volunteers from Japan and Germany and the UK and all over the world were there, and very few believers. I met a couple or three, and I kept thinking, where are the Christians in this? Because a cup of cold water given in the name of Jesus is a different cup of cold water.
That's right.
And he said it would be. We have living water that flows from us. So I came back and I began to talk. I didn't even have an idea what to do. And I talked to some officials of some churches, and we'll have to think about that. Now, if you remember in the 80s, we were also very selfish and thinking of ourselves. And we prayed and we thanked the Lord that the Lord gave us a parking place, for things like that. And I probably was obnoxious also when I came back and said things. But nothing opened up. And so I just continued on with my life. I had children, and we were raising children and through school and high school, et cetera. And was working in the church. And then I was also working in mental health centers at that time. And so I just did life. But it was deep in my heart. Finally, in about 1992 or 93, things began to move and began to say, what about this? And I was working with the Wesleyan Church at that time. And still do, but at that time too, this is who I wouldn't want to partner with. And they began to move in this direction. So finally, it became very obvious, okay. And I felt like the Lord said, now are you going to do this or not? Well, now this is scary. 2 kids have finished college. I've got 2 more kids in college, and college bills have to be paid, and I have money coming in. Yeah. Am I going to jump off this cliff and do this with no funds? Mm-hmm. I could not get away from it. I haven't made those leaps of faith. Kierkegaard talks about the leap of faith.
That's right.
I'd not made that leap of faith very much in my life. These kinds of big ones.
And this is a big one.
And this was the big one. And in December of 95, things were coming together. Now there were no funds for this, but there were certainly plenty of ideas and plenty of opportunities. And I was reading the Christmas story, December 1995, and the angel came to Mary and said, "You're going to bear the Son of God." And she said, "Well, how will this be?" And the angel described it. And I'm sure Mary didn't quite understand what the angel described, but finally she said, "Lord, here I am. Use me."
That's right.
And those words never left me. And then the second piece that never left me was following that. Then Mary says, "With God, all things are possible." And literally that became the tagline in my own spirit. Mm. And still today, 30 years later, with God, all things are possible. And I've seen that over and over and over through World Hope all these years. So yes, we began in a spare bedroom in a parsonage. I had a computer and a desk and me, and that was it. A big vision, but that was it. So I took that leap, and I well remember about 3 weeks later, my husband called me from his office and said, "Joanne, now, when do you get your last paycheck from where you were before? Because I've got some bills I have to pay the colleges here where the boys are, and when do you get that last paycheck?" And I said, "Well, I get my last paycheck January 20th. And on January 21st, I had lunch with a man that I wasn't sure he was going to give me any funds at all. And God just came in that restaurant. And he said, "How much is it going to cost you?" And I had a budget in my purse. Mm-hmm. I pulled out that budget, handed it to him, and I said, "Here it is. This is the budget." And I just want to say, many times we have dreams. If I had sat there and said, "Oh, well, I don't know. Why don't you help me?" Forget it. If God gives you a vision, write it down. And write down what it is. Then that begins to give you guidance. It doesn't mean you have everything, but you got the vision. And so I handed it to him. He looked at it, tears rolling down his face, and he said, "I'll pick up the whole thing." And he picked up the whole operating cost. Now, I still stayed in my little bedroom. I didn't go out and rent stuff. I didn't go out and spend a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And gave myself a small salary. And then was able to bring somebody in to help with bookkeeping. I didn't want to run the money. And that's how we began. So that's kind of a long story. But I want to say it was 11 years
Wow.
from the vision to where it began. So I think many times God guides us in the fullness of time.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't ready in 1985. I didn't know what was needed. I didn't know anything, but I learned a lot all during that time. So many times God is preparing us.
Yeah.
When God sent Jesus, he didn't say, well, I'm going to send it on this day, doesn't matter. No. Fullness of time. Things happened when he was sent. So I think now I'm preaching. But it is, many times in our life, it has to be the fullness of time. We want God, okay, I said this, it's we're in the microwave world, and now it's warm and I can eat it. Mm-hmm. No. There's fullness of time that has to take place.
Yeah, and so often we look back and we go, oh, I would never have guessed I would be right here.
That's right.
But I look back and I go, I see how God's been moving this entire time.
Right. That's exactly right.
Which honestly is kind of even my story of coming to World Hope. Because I was a pastor in the Wesleyan Church, and, God broke my heart when I first learned of human trafficking.
That's right.
And you and I had conversations about that, and you said, you need to go on a trip to Cambodia with World Hope. So I did. That's right. And I hopped on that plane, and God just really broke my heart as we were running that emergency assessment center in Cambodia and working with girls who'd been rescued out of trafficking, out of brothels, ages 16 and under.
I know.
And just seeing the immense evil in the world, but simultaneously seeing God's incredible ability to heal.
Totally.
You just go,
yeah,
all right, I'm in whatever you're calling me to, God, because you are bigger.
That's right.
And here I am today.
That's right.
Who would have thought? But I would love to touch a little bit, because I think it's worth capturing. You were 55 years old.
That's correct.
When World Hope launched.
That's right.
A mom, a wife, a woman, a leader. What would you say to women today who are maybe going, I could never do that, or once I reach my 50s, like, that's it? I don't know. What encouragement would you give?
Well, I would give a lot of encouragement to women, because I think men, and particularly women's careers, are much longer than men's, actually. The studies say that your careers last much longer than men's. And part of that is we kind of take time off to do kid stuff and all that, even though we may be working. I'm not saying because I was always working in between, but I mean, doing all that. But during that time, you're just doing different things. And I think at that time, you're also learning so much. You're learning about relationships. You're learning about multitasking. You're learning about a lot of different people. You have a great broad thing. You may not be running all over the world, but you're learning a big, broad piece of leadership. Yeah. And we don't count that as leadership these days. I think we are now. Used to not. But that's what brings about incredible leadership. So then when you move into your 50s, then you have all these gifts that you really, and experiences you really didn't realize you had. And so that catapults you into the best opportunities that you've ever had in the world to do some things that are very, very significant. So I would encourage women to say, look at your 50s, that's the best. Your 60s, my goodness, here I am, 85. So I don't know what I would have done if I would have quit at 55,
You wouldn't be here today talking about World Hope.
That's right.
For sure.
And then there's also respect. That when you're older, there's respect that takes place from people, which is right, and you've earned it. So then that helps to increase your leadership in things that you feel that you've been made to do. Yeah.